I worked as a courier for a small company, delivering parcels to addresses that customers were afraid to voice out loud. One evening, returning from a last delivery, I noticed a black van parked in front of my house. There was a box on the porch with no sender's name. Inside was an old cassette recorder and stack of photographs. In the pictures, I am myself, leaving the courthouse, buying coffee, sleeping in my bed. On the back of the last photo was written, "You should know that I know." I turned on the recorder. A voice distorted to a mechanical creak said, "They paid you for your silence, but you won't keep it to yourself. You're weaker than you think." It was the first step into a nightmare. The next day, I received a letter from my lawyer. I was sued for disclosing confidential information. But I didn't have access to secrets. I was just carrying parcels. In the evening, the phone rang again. The number was not determined. "Do you remember what happened in room 12? They whispered into the phone. I hung up the phone. "Room 12, Sunset Hotel a year ago. I delivered the envelope there, but the client refused to leave, asked me to leave the package at the door. An hour later, the body was taken out of the room. Suicide, they said on the news. Now someone knew that I was there that I haven't slept in 3 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the number 12. The numbers pulsed in the dark like a neon sign. On the 4th day, I went to Sunset. The hotel stood on the outskirts, its facade peeling off like skin after a burn. The desk clerk, a man with a face riddled with barcode wrinkles, said there was no evidence of suicide in the archive. But when I showed him the photo from the package, his pupils narrowed. "You'd better leave," he said, clutching the radio. I didn't leave. I went up to the 13th floor. Yes, there was a 13th one, without a sign, with a lock that opened with my work key. Door 1312. The smell inside is rust and bleach. There are dried brown spots on the floor. In the bathroom, under the sink, I found a piece of paper. They use couriers as cleaners. You're next. When I got home, I found a folder on my desk. The bankruptcy documents of my company, signed 2 years ago. But I worked there for a year, and I got my salary in cash that I sat on the floor, leaning against the refrigerator, and sorted through the documents with trembling hands. The bankruptcy of the company was a fiction. Seals, signatures, inventory certificates. But in the liquidator column was the name of my immediate superior, Gennady Petrovich, the one who personally hired me, promising good tips for silence. It was only now that I realized that the tip was not for keeping quiet about the contents of the parcels, but for not asking questions about where these parcels go later. Suddenly, the light blinked, 3 short flashes, then silence. That was the signal. I turned off the lamp and leaned against the window. Across the street by the trash cans stood a man in a hooded jacket. He was holding a flashlight in his hand, pointing it at my windows to the rhythm of Morse code. "They're here." I read his lips as the beam of light caught his face for a moment. It was a courier from the neighboring department, Vitek, who disappeared 2 months ago after being delivered to the port. I grabbed a recorder and inserted the tape. After rewinding the tape, I heard a new track. "The key is under the mat at 1312. You have 6 hours before they change the codes." Vitka's voice. The recording ended with a thud. The apartment was filled with the smell of burnt wiring. I jumped out into the entrance, but the elevator was already moving up, slowly, with a creak. On the stairwell of the 3rd floor, someone chalked a downward arrow. Basement. There, among the concrete columns, I found a metal box with the company's logo, the same package from room 12, unopened. Inside was a pistol with a silencer and a photo of Gennady Petrovich hugging the judge who handled the suicide case at Sunset. "Are you still breathing?" A voice croaked in the darkness. The hotel receptionist stepped out from behind the column. In his hand, he clutched a walkie-talkie on which a red light was flashing, a live broadcast. "They're waiting for you to choose between becoming a cleaner or a customer." He tossed a bunch of keys at my feet. "The 13th floor is yours now. You owe me." I raised the gun, but he laughed. "The cartridges are blanks, just like your silence." When I opened my eyes again, the smell of bleach hit my nose. There were gloves on his hands and a fresh pool of blood on the floor of bathroom 1312. And there was already a knock on the door. 3 strokes. Pause. 2 more. The signal. My signal that I dropped the gun. The desk clerk approached slowly, groping along the wall with his hand. In the light of the emergency lamp, I noticed that his walkie-talkie was a plastic toy. An ordinary children's toy with a flashing LED. "You don't understand." He stopped a meter away from me. "These are not threats. This is a suggestion." He took out a wad of money from his inside pocket. "Real ones, tied with a bank ribbon. You've seen the documents. The company has been dead for 2 years, but you keep working. Who do you think paid you in cash? Clients were afraid to reveal their addresses not because of secrets, but because of taxes. Dirty deals, unaccounted for apartments, front companies. And you were the perfect courier. No family, no loans, no social media. Just a shadow. I remembered how Gennady Petrovich once caught me trying to create a page in Insta. Work requires confidentiality. Vitek figured it out. The clerk continued. He wanted to get away with the evidence. His body is now in a container on the outskirts. And you've gone too deep. Either you work for us, or you become a problem. The basement became stuffy. I looked at the money, at the bloodstains at my feet, and suddenly realized that it wasn't blood. Sweet smell, shiny surface, red wine. Someone deliberately spilled it here to intimidate. Keys, the desk clerk repeated. The 13th floor. The archives are kept there. You will destroy the documents that we specify. Or, he didn't finish. A police siren sounded from the street. The desk clerk turned around abruptly, and I saw his neck. Tattoo. The numbers 1312 under the left ear. The ones from a hotel. They're not after me, he hissed, backing out. This is your chance. I ran out the back door, clutching my keys. There was a police car parked in the parking lot. Not our local one. The rooms are metropolitan. The door opened, and a man in civilian clothes came out, with a camera around his neck. Sit down, he said. We have 3 hours before they change the locks in the archive. It was a journalist from the investigative department. The one who wrote about corruption in court 6 months ago. From where? You left footprints, he interrupted. Video from cameras at the house, receipts from stores where you carried parcels. You're not a courier, you're a thread. And we pulled it. The siren sounded again. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed. Decide, archive or morgue. I got in the car. The journalist handed me a flash drive. Here's the sunset data. All 12 rooms in the city are part of the scheme. Fake suicides to hide the sale of apartments. And Vitek, he's alive. He's sitting in our bunker. He's waiting for us to finish. We hit the highway. I didn't look back. The car was speeding along the highway at night. The journalist, who introduced himself as Maxim, did not take his eyes off the rearview mirror. They use hotels as a cover, he said, flipping through files on his tablet. Apartments are sold using forged documents, and in order to hide the transactions, they arrange suicides. The body is a homeless man, bought for a bottle, then data substitution in the morgue. Your Vitek accidentally stumbled upon the customer registry. Why me? I asked. Why didn't they hire you? Because you're the link. You were carrying documents that don't mean anything in themselves. But if you combine them with the data from the archive, he nodded at the flash drive. There will be a chain, judges, realtors, couriers. We turned into the industrial zone. We stopped at a gray building with a sign, archive number 13. The door opened with my key. It smelled of dust and old paper. Quickly, Max emerged. We have 2 hours before the security shift. We walked past stacks of folders. Some of them have the stamp Sunset, Rose Invest, Granstroy. The names of the clients were blacked out with a black marker, but the dates and amounts remained. Here, Maxim snatched out the folder. Number 12 in all hotels in the city. There is a new deal every month. And this. He froze, staring at the paper. I looked over my shoulder, a list of names with ticks in front. Vitek Gennady Petrovich. My name was the last one without a mark. They were cleaning their tracks, Maxim whispered. Anyone who has learned too much. Suddenly the light went out. A door slammed somewhere in the hallway. Run. Maxim grabbed my sleeve. The back door. We ran, stumbling over boxes. Footsteps could be heard behind him, heavy and confident. Maxim stopped abruptly at the exit. There are cameras in there. He took the remote control out of his pocket. We'll turn it off now. But the door swung open on its own. Gennady Petrovich was standing on the threshold. There's a gun in his hand. It's a pity, he said, aiming at me. You were a good courier. Maxim rushed to the side, pushing the shelf. He fell, blocking the passage. Gennady fired, and the bullet hit a metal shelf, striking sparks. Go away. Maxim shouted, throwing a bunch of keys at me. Red is from the server room. Reset the data to the USB flash drive. I ran, hearing swearing and sounds of fighting behind me. The server room was locked, but the key fit. Inside there are rows of computers flashing lights. I inserted the flash drive, frantically pressing the buttons. Come on, come on. I whispered as the screen flashed copy, 78%. The server room door slammed open. The receptionist from Sunset was standing in the doorway. No walkie-talkie, no mask. Just a smile that looks like a snarl. "You're too slow," he said, pointing a silenced pistol at me. I grabbed a chair and threw it at him. He missed. Shot. A bullet pierced the sleeve of the jacket. And then a siren sounded in the hallway. Red flashes illuminated the receptionist's face. "The police." "Stop." It was Maxim. Gennadi's pistol is in one hand and a camera phone is in the other. "Take off your jacket," he told the desk clerk. Slowly. The clerk laughed. "Do you think this is the end?" "We have people in everywhere," Maxim interrupted. "But you forgot about the cameras. The video of you is already online. You're the link between the judges and the bandits. You're the proof." The desk clerk paled. An hour later, we were at the police station. Maxim drank coffee in silence while I testified. Vitek, it turns out, was his informant. Gennady Petrovich is a former supervisor of the scheme who retired. "What now?" I asked when the protocol was signed. "You're protected now," Maxim stood up. "But you'll have to disappear." "New name, city? How's Vitek?" "He went to Kaliningrad. Opens a cafe." I went outside. Dawn was turning the sky pale pink. I had a new SIM card and a train ticket in my pocket. The train arrived in Kaliningrad in the early morning. I walked along the platform, feeling the weight of the backpack with the documents that Maxim handed me before departure. "It's insurance," he said, "if something goes wrong." The new passport called me Andrei Vetrov, a former programmer from Novosibirsk. The apartment in the center, paid for 6 months in advance, was empty, only a mattress on the floor and a chair by the window. I checked the locks, the curtains, turned on the lights. Everything is as described in the instructions. On the third day, I got a job as a loader at a home appliance warehouse. No questions, no documents. The foreman nodded at my resume and threw 500 rubles an hour, without a break. In the evenings, I studied the files from the flash drive. The scheme turned out to be deeper than we thought. Judges, realtors, even district police officers were all connected through shell companies. One file stood out, a list of cleaners marked "Eliminate" after completion. My old name was number 7. On Friday, returning from work, I noticed a dark Honda at the entrance. The plates are local, but the driver didn't get out. An hour later, the car disappeared. The next morning, there was an envelope in the mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside is a photo of Vitka at his cafe by the sea. On the back, "They're here." I took the train to Svetlogorsk. The cafe stood on the outskirts, overlooking an empty beach. Vitek, with a gray beard and an apron, was pouring coffee for the visitors. "Did you know?" I asked as we sat down at a corner table. "About the surveillance." He nodded. "They check everyone who is connected with us. But that's not the main point." He took out a folder from under the counter. "Do you remember the Grandstroi from the archive? This is their new project. An elite complex is being built on the site of the old port. They use the same scheme, fake suicides to liberate the Earth. But how are they?" "Money," Vitek interrupted. "Half of the city is in the share. Cops, officials, even doctors. Doctors. They sign death certificates. Homeless people, refugees, anyone, as long as the parameters match." We fell silent when an elderly couple came through the door. Vitek got up to take the order. I was looking at the sea, gray and cold. In the evening, we went to the construction site. Vitek took a crowbar and a flashlight with him. "We need to find confirmation," he whispered, making his way between the concrete blocks. "Documents, bills, anything." We found the body at the warehouse. A man in his 40s, wearing a work uniform. There are strangulation marks on the neck. In his pocket is a pass with the Grand Line logo. "This is not suicide." Vitek bent over the body. He was killed to cover his tracks. At that moment, the headlights came on. A black Honda pulled around the corner. We ran, but the car took off after us. "Run to the dock." Vitek shouted, distracting the attention. I raced along, hearing the roar of the engine behind me. There was a boat lying on the dock, behind a pile of nets. The ignition key was in the lock, as if it was waiting for me. 2 hours later, I was in Poland. Warsaw was greeted with rain and the smell of coffee from stalls. In my pocket is a flash drive with new data. There's a thought in my head that this is just the beginning. They're here, everywhere. And I'm not a courier anymore. I walked through the wet streets of Warsaw, clutching my backpack to my chest. The lines from the file were spinning in my head. The Grandstroi project is funded through offshore companies in Panama. The key investor is Russian Senator Baranovsky. We needed proof of the connection, payments, contracts, correspondence. In an internet cafe, I went to an anonymous forum where Maxim left instructions. Contact Lukash from Gazeta Wyborgsa. Password, Kaliningrad Waves. Lukash met me at a diner near the train station. An elderly Pole with a cigarette in his mouth. He got straight to the point. Maxim is dead. His body was found in Moscow, and an overdose was faked. I squeezed the mug until my fingers hurt. But the data is intact, he nodded at my backpack. It's important. Baranovsky is running for the State Duma. If we publish the documents before the election, they'll find me, I interrupted. In Poland, their people are in the police, in banks. Then go to Germany. There are journalists in Berlin who can help. He handed me a bus ticket to Frankfurt and der Oder. You'll cross the border on foot. They'll meet you there. I noticed the same Honda at the bus station. The driver, wearing a cap and sunglasses, pretended to be reading a newspaper. I mingled with the crowd of tourists and bought a ticket to Krakow. The bus left an hour later. In Krakow, I rented a room in a hostel under the name Andre. The owner, a middle-aged woman with a tattoo on her wrist, asked, "Will you stay long?" "I don't know. It's safe here," she smiled. "We don't ask questions." I woke up at night to the sound of footsteps. There are two silhouettes in the hallway. I locked the door on a chair and climbed out the window. I bought a ticket to Vienna at the train station. On the train, I checked the flash drive. The files were encrypted. I needed a password that only Maxim knew. In Vienna, I found a phone booth and dialed the number from instructions. "I'm listening," a German, accented voice replied. "This is Vetrov. I need help. Come to the Black Forest Cafe on Maria Hilferstrasse tomorrow. Ask Klaus." The next day, a man in a black coat was sitting in a cafe. He silently took the flash drive and inserted it into the laptop. "The password is Vitek12, I said. Klaus shook his head. "Files are corrupted. The original source is needed." "Where is he?" "In Moscow, in the grand building's server room." We looked at each other. It was raining outside, washing away the remnants of summer from the streets. "Do you understand that this is suicide?" Klaus asked. "No," I stood up. "This is a war." He took an envelope out of his pocket. "Here are the documents in the name of Joseph Muller. And a ticket to Berlin." "Why?" "Because they're already in Vienna," he nodded at the street. A black Honda outside the cafe. "Their people are at the airport." I went out the back door. There was a motorcycle in the alley with a key in the lock. "A gift from Lukash," Klaus said, coming over. "Good luck, soldier." Now I was going to Berlin, knowing that it was a trap. But there was no choice. They wanted war. They'll get it. 2 days later, I was in Chicago. The city greeted me with rain and the smell of diesel. Klaus gave me the contacts of a journalist named Sam Welsh, whose articles about corruption in the construction business I read on the plane. The address Sam had left led to an area of old warehouses. There was a Chicago Independent sign on the door. Inside, there's a half-empty office, piles of papers, and a coffee maker on its last legs. "Are you from Vienna?" Sam asked without looking up from a monitor. About 40 years old, in a battered leather jacket with gray in his beard. "Yes." Klaus said, "You know what to do." "I know. But first, the files." I inserted the flash drive. The screen blinked, giving an error. "They're damaged," Sam stated. "In Moscow. Then we'll have to take the risk." He took a pistol out of a drawer. "It's not up for discussion. I'm not shooting." He tossed me a stack of documents. "Your new name is Jack O'Connell, an Irishman from Boston. He worked at a construction site. Why? Because tomorrow you will get a job at Global Construct. The office is in the center. They hire security without question." "Is this Baranovsky's company?" "It's American branch. They are building a skyscraper on the shore of the lake. They use the same scheme, fake suicides of workers to get insurance. I was in line for an interview this morning. A second-hand suit, fake references. The HR manager, a woman with a doll's face, nodded. "You're accepted. It starts at 8. The first shift is on duty at the server room. Cameras, combination locks, guards with machine guns. But at night, when everyone was leaving, I noticed a blind spot near the ventilation. A week later, Sam gave the go-ahead. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I broke into the server room. My fingers were shaking as I plugged in the flash drive. "Download everything," Sam whispered into the headset. "Payments, contracts, letters." Suddenly, the light flickered. I froze, pressed against the wall. The door opened, and there were 2 guards with lanterns. "Who's there?" I fired first. A miss. They rushed towards the sound. The bullet hit him in the shoulder. I rushed to the window and broke the glass. Falling to the asphalt, I heard a scream. It's him. Stop him. I ran through the park, across the bridge, until I dived into the subway. The train was leaving in a minute. Sam was waiting at Jefferson Station. Did you make it? Yes. Then let's go. We were on our way to New York. At the Bolton Hotel on the outskirts, he inserted a USB flash drive into his laptop. That's it, he pointed at the screen. Baranovsky's connection with Senator Harrison. Payments via offshore companies in the Caymans. What's next? We publish it. Tomorrow. But in the morning, FBI agents burst into the room. Jack O'Connell, you are under arrest on charges of industrial espionage. Sam was gone, just like the flash drive. In the cell, I remembered Klaus' words. They are everywhere. I was released 3 days later. No accusations, no explanations. Sam was waiting at the exit. It was a test, he said. Now they think we're petty crooks. And the files? Safe. On the servers of the Washington Post. A month later, the story exploded in the media. Baranovsky fled to the UAE. Senator Harrison lost his mandate. Global Construct workers went to rallies demanding an investigation. I was sitting in a cafe in Brooklyn, reading the news. Sam was smoking by the window. You're free now, he said. A new name, a new life. No, I interrupted. This is just the beginning. He chuckled. I know. The phone on the table rang, a new message. Photo of a construction site in Chicago. On the back, they are waiting for you. I stood up, leaving my empty cup on the table.